The discovery, the wind howled through the dense forest, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Clara tightened her scarf around her neck, her boots crunching against the frost-covered ground. She had been walking for hours, her breath visible in the cold air, her mind preoccupied with the weight of her recent misfortunes. Her job had been downsized, her relationship had ended abruptly, and her mother's health was deteriorating rapidly. Life had become a series of relentless blows, and Clara felt as though she were drowning in a sea of despair. It was by sheer chance that she stumbled upon the well. The structure was ancient, its stones weathered and covered in moss. The wooden roof above it had long since rotted away, leaving only a few splintered beams. The well's opening was dark, a yawning chasm that seemed to beckon her closer. Clara hesitated, her instincts warning her to turn back, but something about the well drew her in. It was as if it were calling to her, whispering promises of relief from her pain. She peered over the edge, her heart pounding in her chest. The well was impossibly deep, its bottom hidden in shadow. As she stared into the darkness, a strange sensation washed over her, a feeling of warmth and comfort, as if the well were alive and aware of her presence. Without thinking, she whispered her deepest desire into the void. "I wish I could find a way to save my mother." The words hung in the air, and for a moment nothing happened. Then, a faint glow emanated from the depths of the well, growing brighter until it illuminated the surrounding trees. Clara stumbled back, her breath catching in her throat. The light pulsed, and she felt a strange pull, as if the well were drawing something from her. Suddenly, the glow faded, and the forest was plunged back into darkness. Clara stood there, her heart racing, unsure of what had just happened. She felt a strange emptiness, as though a part of her had been taken. Shaken, she turned and hurried back the way she had come. The image of the well burned into her mind. The next morning, Clara received a call from the hospital. Her mother's condition had improved overnight, a miraculous recovery that left the doctors baffled. Clara felt a surge of relief, but it was quickly followed by a nagging sense of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that the well had something to do with it. Over the next few days, Clara found herself drawn back to the forest. She tried to resist, but the memory of the well's power was too strong. She needed to know if it was real, if it could truly grant wishes. When she finally returned to the well, she felt a strange sense of anticipation, as if it had been waiting for her. This time, she was more deliberate. She stood before the well, her hands trembling, and whispered her next wish. "I wish I could find a job that would make me happy." Again, the well responded, the glow brighter this time, the pull stronger. Clara felt a sharp pain in her chest, as if something were being torn from her. When the light faded, she was left feeling hollow, but also hopeful. The next day, she received an unexpected job offer. It was a position she had never applied for, but it was perfect, challenging, rewarding, and with a salary that would ease her financial worries. Clara accepted the job without hesitation, but as the days passed, she began to notice strange changes in herself. She felt more irritable, more prone to anger. Small inconveniences that she would have shrugged off before now sent her into fits of rage. It was as if the well had taken more than just her wish. It had taken a part of her soul. Clara tried to convince herself that it was just stress, that the changes were temporary. But deep down, she knew the truth. The well was changing her, and she wasn't sure she could stop it. The descent. Clara sat at her new desk, staring at the computer screen without really seeing it. The job was everything she had wished for. Challenging projects, a supportive team, and a salary that allowed her to breathe easier. But the satisfaction she had expected was absent. Instead, she felt a gnawing emptiness, a void that seemed to grow with each passing day. The well had given her what she wanted, but it had taken something in return, something she couldn't quite name. Her coworkers noticed the change in her. The once cheerful and approachable Clara had become withdrawn and irritable. She snapped at colleagues over minor mistakes and avoided social gatherings. The anger that simmered beneath the surface was new, foreign, and terrifying. She tried to suppress it, but it was as if the well had planted a seed of darkness within her, and it was growing. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, Clara found herself standing before the well once more. The forest was silent, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the wind. She hadn't planned to come back, but the pull was irresistible. The well seemed to call to her, its dark presence a constant whisper in the back of her mind. "I wish I could be happy again," she whispered, her voice trembling. The well's response was immediate. The glow was brighter this time, almost blinding, and the pull was so strong that Clara felt as though she were being dragged into the depths. She clutched the edge of the well, her knuckles white, as the light enveloped her. When it faded, she was left gasping for air, her body trembling with exhaustion. For a few days, Clara felt a fleeting sense of relief. The anger subsided, and she was able to smile again, to laugh with her coworkers. But it didn't last. The emptiness returned, deeper and more consuming than before. The well had granted her wish, but it had taken more of her in return. She could feel it, the darkness spreading, infecting her thoughts, her emotions, her very soul. Desperate, Clara tried to resist the well's pull. She avoided the forest, threw herself into her work, and sought solace in the company of friends. But the well was always there, a constant presence in her mind. It whispered to her in her dreams, tempting her with promises of relief, of happiness, of everything she had ever wanted. And each time, the pull grew stronger, harder to resist. One night, after a particularly vivid dream, Clara woke in a cold sweat. She had been standing before the well, her hands outstretched, ready to make another wish. The dream felt so real, so tangible, that she could still feel the cold stone beneath her fingertips. She knew she couldn't keep going like this. The well was consuming her, piece by piece, and if she didn't stop, there would be nothing left. Determined to break free, Clara sought out the local library, hoping to find some information about the well. She spent hours poring over old books and records, searching for any mention of a mysterious well in the forest. Finally, she found a reference in an ancient tome, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. The well, according to the book, was known as the Well of Dark Wishes. It was said to have been created by a powerful sorcerer who had sought to harness the power of human suffering. The well fed on the pain and despair of those who used it, granting their wishes but taking a piece of their soul in return. The more one used the well, the more it consumed, until there was nothing left but an empty shell. Clara's hands trembled as she read the passage. The well wasn't just a tool, it was a predator, and she had fallen right into its trap. She had to find a way to break free, to undo the damage it had done. But how? As she left the library, Clara felt a surge of determination. She would resist the well's pull no matter how strong it became. She would find a way to reclaim what it had taken from her. But even as she thought this, she felt the familiar tug, the whisper in the back of her mind. The well was calling to her, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could resist. The resistance, Clara's resolve to resist the well's pull was strong, but the well's influence was stronger. It was as if the well had become a part of her, its whispers weaving through her thoughts, its darkness seeping into her very being. She tried to distract herself, to focus on her work, her friends, anything that would keep her mind occupied. But the well was always there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for her to weaken. One evening, as she sat alone in her apartment, the pull became unbearable. It was a physical sensation, a weight pressing down on her chest, a voice in her head that wouldn't be silenced. She tried to fight it, to remind herself of the cost, but the well's promises were too tempting. It offered her relief, happiness, everything she had ever wanted, and in her weakened state, she couldn't resist. She found herself standing before the well once more, her breath visible in the cold night air. The forest was silent, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the wind. The well's dark presence was overwhelming, its power palpable. Clara hesitated, her hands trembling, but the pull was too strong. "I wish I could be free of this pain," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The well's response was immediate. The glow was brighter than ever, the pull so strong that Clara felt as though she were being torn apart. She clutched the edge of the well, her knuckles white, as the light enveloped her. When it faded, she was left gasping for air, her body trembling with exhaustion. For a few days, Clara felt a fleeting sense of relief. The pain subsided, and she was able to smile again, to laugh with her friends. But it didn't last. The emptiness returned, deeper and more consuming than before. The well had granted her wish, but it had taken more of her in return. She could feel it, the darkness spreading, infecting her thoughts, her emotions, her very soul. Desperate, Clara sought out the help of a therapist. She needed someone to talk to, someone who could help her make sense of what was happening. But how could she explain the well? How could she tell someone about the darkness that was consuming her without sounding insane? She decided to keep the well a secret, focusing instead on her feelings of emptiness and anger. The therapist was kind and understanding, but Clara could tell that she didn't fully grasp the depth of her despair. The sessions helped, but they weren't enough. The well's pull was still there, a constant presence in her mind. She needed to find another way to break free. One night, after a particularly vivid dream, Clara woke in a cold sweat. She had been standing before the well, her hands outstretched, ready to make another wish. The dream felt so real, so tangible, that she could still feel the cold stone beneath her fingertips. She knew she couldn't keep going like this. The well was consuming her, piece by piece, and if she didn't stop, there would be nothing left. Determined to break free, Clara sought out the local library, hoping to find some information about the well. She spent hours poring over old books and records, searching for any mention of a mysterious well in the forest. Finally, she found a reference in an ancient tome, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. The well, according to the book, was known as the Well of Dark Wishes. It was said to have been created by a powerful sorcerer who had sought to harness the power of human suffering. The well fed on the pain and despair of those who used it, granting their wishes but taking a piece of their soul in return. The more one used the well, the more it consumed, until there was nothing left but an empty shell. Clara's hands trembled as she read the passage. The well wasn't just a tool, it was a predator, and she had fallen right into its trap. She had to find a way to break free, to undo the damage it had done. But how? As she left the library, Clara felt a surge of determination. She would resist the well's pull, no matter how strong it became. She would find a way to reclaim what it had taken from her. But even as she thought this, she felt the familiar tug, the whisper in the back of her mind. The well was calling to her, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could resist. The revelation, Clara's determination to break free from the well's influence, grew stronger with each passing day, but so did the well's hold on her. It was a constant battle, a tug-of-war between her willpower and the well's dark allure. She knew she couldn't keep going like this. She needed to find a way to sever the connection, to reclaim what the well had taken from her. Her research at the library had given her a starting point, but she needed more information. She needed to understand the well's origins, its purpose, and how it could be defeated. She returned to the library, spending hours poring over ancient texts and obscure manuscripts. Finally, she found what she was looking for: a detailed account of the well's creation and the sorcerer who had brought it into existence. According to the text, the sorcerer had been a powerful and ambitious man, driven by a desire to control the forces of life and death. He had created the well as a means of harnessing the power of human suffering, using it to fuel his dark magic. The well was not just a tool, it was a living entity, a being of pure darkness that fed on the pain and despair of those who used it. The text also contained a warning. The well's power was not easily undone. Once it had taken hold of a person, it would not let go. The only way to break free was to confront the well directly, to face the darkness within oneself and overcome it. But the cost would be great. The well would fight back, using every means at its disposal to maintain its hold. And if Clara failed, she would be lost forever. Clara knew what she had to do. She had to return to the well, to confront it and reclaim what it had taken from her. It was a terrifying prospect, but she had no other choice. She couldn't continue to live like this, consumed by the well's darkness. That night, Clara made her way back to the forest. The air was thick with tension, the trees seeming to close in around her as she approached the well. The well's dark presence was overwhelming, its power palpable. Clara hesitated, her hands trembling, but she knew she couldn't turn back now. She stood before the well, her heart pounding in her chest. The well's dark opening seemed to stare back at her, a yawning chasm that threatened to swallow her whole. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "I know what you are," she said, her voice trembling but determined. "I know what you've done to me, and I'm here to take back what you've taken." The well's response was immediate. The glow began to emanate from its depths, brighter and more intense than ever before. The pull was overwhelming, a force that threatened to drag her into the darkness. Clara clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms as she fought to resist. "You can't have me," she said through gritted teeth. "I won't let you." The well's glow intensified, the pull growing stronger. Clara felt as though she were being torn apart, her body and mind stretched to their limits. But she refused to give in. She focused on the light within herself, the part of her that the well hadn't been able to touch. She thought of her mother, her friends, the life she had fought so hard to build. She thought of the person she used to be, the person she still was, deep down. And then, something shifted. The well's pull began to weaken, its glow dimming. Clara felt a surge of strength, a sense of clarity that she hadn't felt in months. She realized that the well's power came from her own pain, her own despair. By confronting it, by refusing to let it control her, she was taking away its source of strength. The well's glow faded completely, the forest plunging back into darkness. Clara stood there, her body trembling with exhaustion, but she felt a sense of relief she hadn't felt in a long time. She had faced the well and she had won. But as she turned to leave, she felt a faint tug, a whisper in the back of her mind. The well wasn't gone. It was still there, waiting, biding its time. Clara knew that the battle wasn't over. The well would always be a part of her, a darkness that she would have to fight for the rest of her life. But for now, she had reclaimed a part of herself. She had taken back what the well had stolen, and that was enough. The final confrontation. Clara stood at the edge of the well, her breath visible in the cold night air. The forest was eerily silent, as if the world itself was holding its breath. She had come prepared, armed with the knowledge she had gathered from the ancient texts. The well could only be destroyed from within, by someone who had been touched by its power. But the cost was clear. To destroy the well, she would have to sacrifice herself. She clutched a small, weathered journal in her hands, a record of her journey, her struggles, and her discoveries. If she didn't survive, she wanted someone to know the truth about the well. She placed the journal on the ground, weighed down by a stone, and turned her attention back to the well. The well's dark opening seemed to pulse, as if it sensed her intentions. The whispers in her mind grew louder, more insistent. They promised her peace, happiness, and everything she had ever wanted. But Clara knew better now. The well's promises were lies, designed to ensnare her further. She had to resist. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," she said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "You took everything from me, but I'm taking it back." She stepped closer to the edge, her heart pounding. The well's glow began to emanate from its depths, brighter and more intense than ever before. The pull was overwhelming, a force that threatened to drag her into the darkness. But this time, Clara didn't resist. She closed her eyes and let herself fall forward, into the well. The descent was endless. Darkness surrounded her, pressing in from all sides. She felt as though she were falling through time and space, her body and mind stretched to their limits. Memories flashed before her eyes. Her mother's smile, her friend's laughter, the life she had fought so hard to build. She clung to those memories, using them as a lifeline against the well's suffocating darkness. Finally, she landed. The impact was soft, as if she had fallen onto a bed of moss. She opened her eyes and found herself in a cavernous space, the walls lined with glowing, pulsating veins of light. At the center of the cavern stood a figure, a shadowy, humanoid shape that seemed to shift and writhe as if made of smoke. "You've come far," the figure said, its voice a low, resonant hum that echoed through the cavern. "But you cannot destroy me. I am a part of you now." Clara stood, her legs trembling but her resolve firm. "You're wrong," she said. "You're not a part of me. You're a parasite, feeding on my pain. And I'm here to end you." The figure laughed, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. "You think you can defeat me? You are nothing but a vessel, a means to an end. Your suffering sustains me. Without it, I would not exist." Clara took a step forward, her fists clenched. "Then I'll take it back," she said. "Every piece of pain, every moment of despair. I'll reclaim it all, and I'll use it to destroy you." The figure lunged at her, its smoky form swirling around her like a storm. Clara felt the darkness pressing in, threatening to overwhelm her. But she focused on the light within herself, the part of her that the well hadn't been able to touch. She thought of her mother, her friends, the life she had fought so hard to build. She thought of the person she used to be, the person she still was, deep down. And then she let go. She released all the pain, all the anger, all the despair that the well had taken from her. It flowed out of her like a river, filling the cavern with a blinding light. The figure screamed, its form dissolving as the light consumed it. The walls of the cavern began to crumble, the glowing veins of light fading into nothingness. Clara felt herself being pulled upward, back toward the surface. The darkness receded, replaced by a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. She closed her eyes and let herself be carried away. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on the forest floor, the well standing silent and still before her. The glow was gone, the whispers silenced. The well was no longer a living entity. It was just a structure of stone and moss, its power extinguished. Clara sat up, her body aching but her spirit lighter than it had been in months. She looked at the well one last time, then turned and walked away. Clara's life didn't magically improve overnight. The scars left by the well, both physical and emotional, would take time to heal. But for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. She had faced the darkness within herself and emerged stronger. She returned to her job, her relationships, and her life with a newfound sense of purpose. She shared her story with those who would listen, warning them of the dangers of seeking quick fixes to life's problems. The journal she had left by the well was found by a hiker, who passed it on to local historians. The well became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the cost of giving in to despair. As for Clara, she never forgot the lessons she had learned. She knew that darkness would always be a part of life, but she also knew that she had the strength to face it, and that was enough.